Hey, it's Larry Sharp here. It is a little bit after 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and here I am yet again on a Friday evening. Yes, I know it's nuts, but I am here indeed sharing what I think is some interesting stuff with you this evening, and I think you will be interested. And if you go, Larry, this is always interesting, awesome, then do me the favor and like and comment and share because it does matter. Every little bit does count. Click that like button. If you have not subscribed, please do so right now. It really does matter tremendously. And of course, support my sponsors. World's smallest political quiz. If you head on over there, take the world's smallest political quiz, share it with other people. It does matter. It's a inexpensive, in fact, it's free way of supporting the show. You say, Larry, I want to support the show, but I want to write you a check or give you some money. You can, no check. Head over to patreon.com/Sharpway. Throw me a couple bucks, $10 a month, and I can keep this thing going. I would like that tremendously. Recently, people have been talking about the red wave in New York, and I am seeing it everywhere. People talking about, yeah, it's the red wave, and they're doing things and saying things like, well, it's because Lee Zeldin was a great candidate. He got us the 4 extra seats and all those things. They're asking all these people all these questions. How did it work? What happened? Why was Hochul so bad? Blah, blah, blah. How come it happened in New York and no place else? And no one seems to ask me. It drives me crazy that people don't you could just ask me, I would tell you. Well, Larry, how do you know? Because I know New York State politics, statewide politics, better than probably anybody else. Probably better than anybody else. I called Zeldin 5 or 10 points exactly. I said what was going to happen with 100% certainty. Yes, like I knew what was going to happen. And I explained why. People were like, yeah, but let me go ask this other guy. And Briahna Joy Gray went on her Bad Faith podcast. And why am I bringing her up? Because I happen to like her. I think, and some of you don't like her at all. I know she is left. It's true. So for you more right-leaning people, you may not like her, but you may not like her policies, but she is absolutely, I think at least, a good faith actor. She says what she honestly feels. She'll debate virtually anybody. She fights with the left as much as she fights with the right. So I happen to like her personally. I think she's a good faith actor. Some of the people you've seen me talk to, they're not good faith actors. Their goal is only to make someone look bad. She does not do that. So I like her. And often she's this, and depending on where she goes, she's sometimes the sanest person in the entire room. This one, I hope she happens to be watching. That would be amazing. She talked about, she was curious about how to deal with the red wave in New York. And she decided to not call me, but instead told us some other people, which I am surprised because they got parts of the thing right, but in general, they got it wrong. And this is her talking about it.
Closely. There's a lot that's gone on in New York in the context of midterms. It's become an unexpectedly significant state.
It's an unexpectedly significant state. Well, yes and no, but yeah.
I'm a little unsure where to start, so let me just lay out the lay of the land so far. For one, there was an unexpectedly strong challenger to the Democratic governor in a ostensibly blue state. A Trump Republican really leaned into the kind of fear-mongering around crime, and people think had some success on that basis.
Now, there's the issue. A strong candidate. I know some of you really like Lee Zeldin. I don't know why, but I know some of you do. It wasn't that he was a strong candidate. And kudos to Lee. I mean, I'm going to give the man some credit. He's grifting off of this loss amazingly well. I mean, like really well. I'm well done is all I can say. He's going to grift well. He might even be the chair of the party. He's grifting like amazingly well, but it's not because he was a strong candidate.
Hochul leaned into that as well. And there's been a lot of conversation about whether or not it was an effective strategy, although she managed to pull it out and win in the end. Additionally, the red wave that many people thought was going to materialize did not. And Democrats actually stood a chance of potentially even holding on to the House. Nothing's settled yet, but it looks unlikely that they will do that, even though it's very slim margins, which is giving people more cause to look at New York with more scrutiny because Democrats lost a number of House seats in the state, without which they might have actually been able to hold on to the House.
Now, this is the most important part that people don't get. This is true. If the Democrats would have actually held on to the seats in New York State, they wouldn't have lost the House. That's how bad the Republicans did this midterm. And if you're a Republican, you should really be thinking about this. Like you should, and I'm going to tell you how it happened. It wasn't because Hochul was so bad, and that's part of it, or Zeldin was so good. It was luck. And I'll explain that in a second.
And moreover, there's this broader conversation that continues what we talked about last time you were on the show about the utility, the efficacy of Sean Patrick Maloney choosing to basically boost Mondaire Jones out of his seat, which was...
Now, for those of you who may not know, the guy who actually runs the Democrats and their ability and their desire and their chair, basically, of their committee that actually has to get Democrats elected, this guy named Maloney, who's here in New York. And he, when they redistricted, decided to throw out somebody so that he could run, and then he lost that seat. So the guy who was supposed to be in charge of winning seats lost his seat in New York because he pushed somebody out because of seniority. And both of them lost their seats. That happened. That's not because Zeldin's good or Hochul's bad. That's because that guy's an ass.
Seat for him to win, and then subsequently losing that race. So all of that being said, what on earth is going on in New York State?
Well, yeah, you just said it, right? Going into election day, I fully expected Republicans to perform well in New York State. And I extrapolated from that to think, well, they're probably going to perform well everywhere. And it turned out, no, in fact, it was red ripple for the rest of the country and red wave for New York. And a lot went into that. You covered some of it. Obviously, you had a incendiary but very disciplined campaign from Lee Zeldin, the Republican candidate, who's
it was not well-disciplined campaign. It was definitely fiery. That's true. Everything was about crime. That's accurate. That was the campaign. That's true. But it wasn't well-disciplined.
The Long Island congressman who ran very hard on crime, and pretty much only crime. For a while it was, he's talking about inflation or vaguely education, but really in the final weeks of the campaign, and almost every single day he was calling a press conference around some shooting, stabbing, or murder, and he became a one-issue candidate. And that one issue got him 47% of the vote in the...
Okay, that one issue did not get him 47% of the vote. That issue got him a lot and got him entryway into areas where he wasn't going to go before. That's 100% true. I do love that. Yes, 100%. That is true. But he got it because the Democrats didn't do anything. They sat back and said, well, you're lying. There is no crime.
State, which is a lot. I mean, no governor's race has been that close in New York in almost 30 years, and no Republican has done that well in 20 since George Pataki won a third term.
True.
So
but what no one has mentioned in any of these is the crime came from what? The COVID lockdowns. The biggest reason why people wanted to vote against Kathy Hochul was crime and the mandates and the lockdowns. But they won't say that. I guess they don't want to get shadow banned. I'm already shadow banned, so I guess I can say it. But they won't say it. The mandates and the lockdowns is what caused the crime. It's what shut everybody down. It's what caused all the problems. Who was in charge for that? Hochul was, and Cuomo, but same difference. They're the same person. Did exactly the same thing. People were mad because of that. It wasn't that Zeldin was going to solve a problem. Nobody knew what Zeldin was going to do, and they actually covered that. Zeldin had no plans. He was just yelling cops. That was it.
Start right there with a pretty campaign capitalizing on fear of crime and also a media-driven narrative around crime. You also had a very ineffectual Democratic campaign from Kathy Hochul.
That's true.
And really from the state party, which is fun.
See, this is a problem he doesn't understand. He says an ineffective campaign. This is true and not true. When you look at traditionally, the traditional campaign of going out, shaking hands, meeting people, yes, she was bad. But what does Kathy Hochul do better than that I think anybody here recently has seen? She hands out jobs better than anybody. The reason what her good campaign was, you guys all owe me. All the government workers all owed her. She had almost she ran a couple of cop unions, believe it or not. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but she actually did. That's how many jobs she gave out. She had a cop union or two. So that's exactly how bad it was. She had most of the unions, and she gave out tons of jobs, construction workers. She gave out jobs. That's her type of campaigning. Glad handing. Instead of 3 men in the room, it's 1 man, 1 woman, and someone else in the room.
Functionally useless. Hochul, someone who for large parts of the summer was really utilizing a rose garden strategy, not doing all that much beyond running television ads, not in New York City all that much where the bulk of votes are. It really was only in like the final week or two when the alarm bell started to sound and they started to get elected officials like Zohran involved. So it was a campaign without a message, really. There was no compelling reason offered to voters for Kathy Hochul. It was only, Lee Zeldin is bad, and that's that. And so
yes, that's accurate. And that's the same reason, the same thing Zeldin had. Zeldin had Kathy Hochul bad. When both person bad, how can it
finally, in the end, she was able to kind of scare up enough of a vote out of New York City to go against Zeldin and therefore for her.
Now, this is also not true. You can't scare up enough votes. There were 500,000 less votes than 2018. So she wasn't scaring up enough votes. It's not accurate.
So we have in New York a pretty much useless Democratic Party organization. We have a governor who has only been in office a year, but so far has not really shown an ability to message very well around the accomplishments she does have, but also I think more importantly to offer an affirmative vision for the future. And I remember I did a piece about her.
Now the one thing she did talk about was the 2 big issues, right? She did make her whole thing about it's going to be free for we're going to make sure we have women's self reproductive rights, right? We're going to have all that no more guns, right? She did do that
about a month ago, and I was trying to interview her and they refused, which I wasn't surprised about. But really what surprised me is I sent softball questions in to the spokesperson, just trying to find out, what do you want for next year out of Albany? What do you want to do in the next 4 years? And they could not answer. It was a very bland general answer that meant almost nothing. So I think you combine all of that, a strong Republican campaign, fear around crime, a weak Democratic campaign.
At no point did anyone bring up several things. Number 1, which I brought up, COVID lockdowns. Not even brought up at all. Not brought up at all.
A lot of super PAC spending from Republicans as well. I don't want to discount that. And you get a margin that was very close.
And money.
And that
Molinaro only raised when he ran in 2018 like $3 or $4 million, right? Zeldin raised like $14-15 million. Yeah, triple the money. Yes.
Close margin really hurt Democrats down the ballot in the House, especially. And you had the wipeout of the entire the entire Long Island House delegation went Republican, which has not happened in many decades.
All right, this is the biggest issue that they're not expressing at all. For those of you who were there and remember, we redistricted all of New York State for congressional seats. So number 1, it's not going to help out. You're going to hurt your incumbents if you change their districts. They're lazy. They've been sitting there forever. They know their district. Well, they did redistricted. Now, the Democrats were so bad in their redistricting. When I say bad, I mean corrupt. The Democrats tried to redistrict in a way that was so corrupt, they were literally going to redistrict out 2 or 3 Republican seats, gerrymander them to make sure that the Republicans got like 2 seats and Democrats got everything else. It was that bad. Republicans were pissed off. I get it. It was some of the worst gerrymandering ever. Now, generally speaking, New York State judges go, whatever, all good. We don't care. We're just state lackeys. That's what most New York State judges do. But this time, when the Republicans sued, one judge was like, "All right, this is so bad. I can't even I, the state lackey that I am, the tool of the state that I am, I can't even say yes. This is just so bad." So he threw it out. And then another Republican group of people redrew the districts. And it screwed all the Democrats over. That's why the Democrats lost 4 seats. Redistricting by more Republican-leaning teams because the judge was a Republican judge. That's reality. You can say anything else you want. You can try to blame somebody else. You can try to say Zeldin was a great guy, or whatever you want to say. No, redistricting. That was what happened, and that's why it worked. And how did it start? Oh, back in Cuomo times. Cuomo his wake has been so much pain for so many Democrats. So many Democrats. He thought he was untouchable. He stayed there forever. And if he was still there, that probably would have been okay. He probably would have bullied that judge into saying okay. But it didn't happen. So what happened? They sat back, watched the redistricting happen, screwed Democrats over. It literally took senior Democrats and put them in the same districts more than once, booting out big Democrats, getting rid of them. That's what happened, and that is the reason why. That's why it happened. It only happened in New York. What was supposed to do in New York? Only one state had to redistrict in the middle of election season. That would be New York State. And for those of you who remember, I was literally trying to get signatures when for 2 weeks, New York State didn't have any congressional districts because we couldn't go back to the old ones because we had 27 districts in the old one. New York State's lost so many people, it's down to 26. So we had no districts for 2 weeks. How do you campaign during that? You don't. Now all of a sudden you're in a different place. You live in a different place. You can't run in your district because you don't live there anymore. You have to pack up and move. That's what happened. All this other stuff is people just talking trash. I hope, Briahna Joy, I hope you're actually watching because that's the real reason. Everything else
Valley, every Republican was successful, except for the Republican who ran against Pat Ryan, who managed to win again. The Syracuse area, that seat looks to be held by a Republican again. So you just had on the House level this complete GOP dominance, which was not reflected in other parts of the country, which was really fascinating.
It's not fascinating. It's redistricting. It's not fascinating at all.
So Zohran, as a progressive, I want to know what your perspective is on this.
Now, here's the funny part. The progressive, this guy, by the way, this guy on the left, he's my assemblyman. Yes, she literally picked my assemblyman. I don't get this. You couldn't pick me. Briahna Joy, you couldn't pick me. You picked him. Well, let me get your theory. He didn't have an opponent. He ran unopposed. Let me ask Guy who ran unopposed what he thinks.
Because many people have observed that if this were to have happened on a progressive's watch, if there were a Cynthia Nixon style governor situation where the top of the ticket could be blamed for downstream negative effects, it would have that blame would have happened. Moreover, my understanding is that, as Ross,
she's trying to see if they're going to blame more left people, because this guy, Zohran, he's actually a member of the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. Yes, so you're going to wonder how blue my district is. Let me give you a couple of facts. My congressperson, AOC, part of the squad. My assemblyman, this guy Zohran, he is a member of the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. That's how blue my district is. You think I don't know blue? I know blue.
Hochul's ability to succeed in the ninth inning was largely due to rallying from WFP and other progressives in the state and in New York City in particular.
Now they're saying that they actually are doing this from the WFP, which is the Working Families Party. The Working Families Party, which drives me crazy, should just be, it shouldn't be a party. It's a parasite party. It should be a caucus within the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party attacks the WFP all the time, and they just fall back in line every single time.
So what do you make of this? And especially this question of crime, which people are saying cuts both ways. One, against Democrats insofar as Republicans have made an issue of it. But other people are saying that Hochul basically leaning into the Republican messaging prevented people from seeing real distinctions there that actually could have enabled her to fare better in this race.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you look back to the budget in April of this year, one of the major battles was between Governor Hochul and the legislature, where Governor Hochul wanted to undo some of bail reforms.
Now, this is savvy on Hochul. Hochul did undo some bail reform. She did. That's true. So now, of course, what Briahna's saying is, well, see, then now she's not going to do well because she undid some of the bail reform. No, not at all. where Republicans made most of their push was in ethnic communities in places like New York City, Long Island, Westchester, places like that. Why would these groups that usually used to vote Democrat just straight down the line even consider not doing it? Crime. So Kathy Hochul had to get her people in and go, see, I heard you, I did something. Because here is the biggest problem so many Republicans in New York State don't get. Just because a Democrat votes Republican one cycle doesn't make them a Republican. They are still just a pissed off Democrat. So they might vote Republican for one term, then they're right back to Democrats as soon as it's a Democrat they think it's not crazy. Well, if Hochul walks in and goes, I heard you. See, I pulled some stuff off. They go, oh, okay. Maybe she's not that bad. And they go right back to their old ways. That's what was happening.
Largest pieces of that 2019 legislation. And in her attempts that were ultimately successful to undo portions of that, she was very much echoing Republican talking points. And even in a public op-ed about the issue, she stated, while the data shows that bail reform is successful, here are a number of things that we need to do.
Now, this guy's talking about how to message against Republicans. Guess how many Republicans this guy's ran against? None. None. Every single time he runs, there's no Republican. For those of you who don't know how blue let me tell you something how blue my district is. This guy's talking trash on how to run against Republicans. He's never run against one. The Republicans have not run an assembly person in my district in 10 years. I'm not joking. In 10 years. And 10 years ago, when they ran Republican, the Democrat won by 70 points. Not 17, not 1-7, by 7-0. 70 points. 85-15. So the last time the Republicans ran, even bothered to run in my district, was 10 years ago. And when they ran, they lost by 70 points. Now, before that, you know, the last time that they ran a candidate was 12 years before that. And that person lost by like 40 points. So literally, if you took all of the percentage points of the Republicans who ran in my district in the last 22 years and combined them all and put them against 1 year of a Democrat running in my district, the Republican would still lose. This guy's now going to teach you all how to run against a Republican. In a district that's so blue, they've only had someone run twice in 22 years. Not get beat, but not even run. So Democrats run unopposed in my district for 22 years. Sorry, twice they didn't. And if you combine all the votes that both the Republicans got in 22 years and put against 1 year of Democrats, you still don't win. That's how blue my district is. And she picked this guy to teach you how to run against Republicans. Okay.
So when you start to lean into that, narrative, it then becomes very difficult when you're put up against a Republican who is the master of that kind of language. This is from their playbook. Because then if somebody cares about that worldview and that is their ultimate framework on who they vote for, they would obviously take the person who is the original, the origin.
Okay, here's the problem. He's correct, but irrelevant. And what I mean that. He's right. If you cared heavily about Back the Blue, you're gonna vote for Zeldin. It doesn't matter what Hochul says. He's assuming that Hochul was trying to turn Republicans. Hochul was not trying to turn Republicans. She didn't have to. She didn't care about it. She told Republicans to leave the state, get in the bus and go to Florida. Did you forget that? Cuomo told Republicans there's no place in the state for you. So they're not trying to turn Republicans. That's not their goal. Their goal is to get their base out. All Kathy Hochul gonna do is say, I'm not as bad as they say I am. See, I did some bail reform stuff. See, you can still vote for me, right? And they went, all right. That's what actually happened.
Of this kind of thinking, as opposed to, a more watered down version of Republican talking points. So I do think that is one of the key issues, is that so much of this race was on the issue of crime and the question of crime and the question of law and order and disorder. I think another issue, though, is that...
And that's the part, the question of. people felt, whether it was real or not, and some people tell me it's not real, but no matter what, people felt like crime was getting worse. I felt it. I feel it. I'm here. I see it. Right? So it is happening. So the question of, that's what insults me. Don't tell me I don't see crime when I see crime. Instead, tell me what you're going to do about it, whatever it is. And not go, oh, clearly, Larry, you're stupid. That makes people not show up, which is why, again, over 500,000 people didn't show up to vote.
That, typically when you think about the New York landscape and you think about local politics, you think that the people who are the people considered marginals, the elected officials in the most kind of swing portions of the state are outside of New York City. But all of the losses that occurred in the New York State Assembly were inside New York City.
Yep.
And what I think that also speaks to is a state party apparatus and local county apparatuses that have not learned at all from the glaring messages of recent elections, which have shown the rightward shift.
All right, let me say this again. If you try to go into a city and try to find where the local Republican chair is, try to find that person, you're going to struggle. If you're telling me Democrats are broken, Republicans are non-existent. 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 I will say this again. This guy who's telling you about how bad the Democratic Party is has never run against the Republican. Never run against one. Because they don't run them in my district. They don't. And on the congressional level, we do run people. And everyone that they run Republican run, I know the person personally. I'm not joking, like they're in my cell phone. Like I can call the person who's running because I know who they are. There's so few Republicans in my district that I literally like, he's running. I know him. Oh, her, I know her. Like I know the people who are running. That is how it is in my district. So they got guy in super duper blue district explaining how to beat Republicans.
Certain communities and certain districts across our 5 boroughs versus Lee Zeldin learning very clearly from those results, even as recently as Curtis Sliwa running against Eric Adams in the general election for the New York City mayor's race.
Okay, Zeldin didn't learn from these results, right? You're giving him far too much credit. Zeldin was worried that with all the redistricting I was talking about, Zeldin was worried he would lose his seat because he's an absentee landlord. He doesn't show up to vote. He doesn't show up in his districts. All they do is complain and never see him. So he's an absentee guy. He was afraid he would lose his seat. And he was like, if they redistrict, I'm done. I know what I should do. I think I should run for office. Nobody wanted to take the L for the governor, right? That's the problem in New York State. Who wants to take the L? Idiots like me take the L, but no one wants to take the L. He said, I might take it here. I'll gamble here. What can you give me, Langworthy? Langworthy said, don't worry about it. Come, run. I'll raise tons of, literally $10, $20 million for you. I'll take the congressional seat, so I'll grift, and I'll leave the seat open for you. And you can take this seat. That's a cool job for you. Win-win. We're all good. That's what actually happened. He wasn't learning from anything. He didn't care. He took all the money and he spent it, which was smart for him. Terrible for Republicans across New York State, but very good for him.
And focusing on Asian communities in specific portions of East Queens and South Brooklyn, on Orthodox communities,
yes,
hammering home a message that is tailor-made for those communities.
Which, okay, here's what you got to realize. He's right. This party's right. That's what he did do. But it's not like he learned that. That's not what Sliwa did. It's not how that works, right? That's not what Sliwa did. What he saw was crime works. And the media said, crime works. So as crime works, he just went to these communities who were having crime against them, the Asian community. We saw it everywhere, and said, I'll fix it, when Hochul said nothing.
Doing long-term engagement and outreach to those communities. And all of that stands in stark contrast with the governor's campaign, where I was calling the campaign to try and initiate sustained Muslim outreach for the campaign, right? Saying that this is a clearly Islamophobic candidate running on the Republican line. There are other Republicans who have said incendiary things about Muslims. We have a clear opportunity here to talk to New Yorkers and make it clear what the choice is. But in effect, I was trying to orchestrate that at the.
So to be clear, he was talking about this positive message. Remember, there's no positive message. So what did this guy want to do? Oh, here's what I'll do. I'll go say that the Republican hates Muslims. I'm not joking. That's what he said. Now, here's what I'm going to give him. I'm going to give Mamdani something very good. He still hustles. He does. His people still come to my door. I get robocalls from him and from his office. People call me up and ask me questions. So I'm going to give him credit where credit is due. He actually does hustle to get his stuff. I'll give him that he does. So, but I'm not sure why they picked him. People are asking what district I'm in. I'm in District 36, which is in Astoria, right? So he is literally my assemblyman. I know, it's crazy. And you guys don't understand how, when I say I'm in the belly of the beast, when I say I'm on the front line, I'm on the front line, right? My member of the assembly is a member of the Democratic Socialists of America in a district that hasn't had a Republican run in 10 years. Not run and lose, not even run in 10 years. So, yeah, that's where I am. I think that maybe give you an idea. And AOC is my congressperson, and she won by 40 points. AOC won by 40 points. This is where I live, just for clear. So Sam says millions of New Yorkers voted for Hochul despite lockdowns, vax pass, pay to play scandal at the stadium. Our politics is so polarized. Yes, absolutely. Dave says the blue states are getting bluer and the red states are getting redder. That means the seats in those states might flip, but it ends up status quo. Oh, I like how you're thinking of it. It's right. Yeah. Good point. Very good. It's right. Yes. Tom says $1.2 billion stadium in Buffalo had to help. I agree. Logic says both Zeldin and Hochul are worse than bad. Boggles the mind why anyone would vote for either of them. I know, but they do because they're scared of the other one. They think, well, at least it's not the other one. Yes, absolutely. Dottie says Democrats have always done that. When my dad went to work for the state, Wilson was in office after Rocky became VP. The state phone book was about a quarter-inch thick. About a year after Hugh, I remember Hugh Carey. Yes, the phone book grew to over an inch thick. I remember Hugh Carey. Yes, I just remember that. See, Dottie, I remember absolutely. So Sam goes on to say, great points by districts. That's the biggest piece that no one's talking about, right? First part is COVID lockdowns, which creates the crime. That's how the Republican can get into these communities by yelling about crime. They are afraid of crime, so that's what gets in. And then districting to make sure that it's gerrymandered away to where Republicans can win. That's it. Dan goes, this is good information. I enjoyed Dan Bongino's show as well. And he was excited about Republican victories on Long Island. Your show is a nice counterbalance. The redistricting is a vital piece of missing information that no one's mentioning. Exactly. Briahna Joy Gray, if you're watching, why didn't you ask me? I would have told you this. I lived it, literally. I was trying to get signatures when they redistricted. And we went to court and showed them how to redistrict it. And they said, we don't care, Larry Sharp. We don't care at all. Yes. Danny says, Hochul also went on a pandering spree right before the election too. Yes, right, handing out jobs everywhere. Look, I understand if someone gives you a job and then you want to vote for them. I get it. Look, I don't like it, but how can I be mad at you, right? They're giving you a job. You got to pay your bills. We all got to pay bills. I get it. I hate it, but I understand it. And boy, can she give out some jobs. She's really good at that. So yes. Senate Libertarian says, I can't believe the LP National didn't give you the funds for ballot access. That's a failure no matter who was in charge. 50 state ballot access is going to be very difficult in 2024. We are working on it, guys. We're going to be working on that coming up here. You're right. It's going to be hard. But I think we can work on it. There is a way we can do it. We just got to work on it. That's it, right? We can. Sherry says, when my in-laws moved from Inwood to Long Island, they were told to push the Republicans. Oh, yes. That's because one side's more gerrymandered, so you want to be able to vote in the primaries. Absolutely. 100%. Yep. So Dan says, when I lived in St. Louis, I lived in what is now Cori Bush's district. Lacey Clay was a representative for a long time, whether we liked it or not. That's good. So I still picture Clacy Lay giving advice or running against Republicans. His name was the only name on the ballot most times. Yes. I usually voted for the occasional libertarian candidate nobody ever heard of. Thank you. I do appreciate that. Yes, absolutely. 100%. I already answered what district are you in. So thank you. I do appreciate that. So, yeah, I mean, this is an important piece. Let me grab a little bit more of this, and I'll see that they're not even like, it's as if they don't know, or they're trying to sound smart. I'm not sure.
Minute, because it wasn't a pre-existing aspect of that campaign.
Yeah, this is the first. I mean, honestly, I got to say, I hadn't heard much about Zeldin before this. And
yes,
this is literally the first time I'm hearing that he was explicitly Islamophobic or even tacitly Islamophobic. And
now she says he's explicitly Islamophobic. Do I know that to be true? I don't. But wasn't the other guy just saying we need a positive message? So how is that going to help? Right? If all the Democrats did, and if you saw any of the, I think I showed some of you guys on the show some of the stuff I'm getting. I literally got at least once a week, not twice a week, things in the mail that said Zeldin's gonna kill you all, or whatever. It was a terrible. Hochul was sending out mailers every week. I was getting a mailer. Zeldin's gonna murder you. He's gonna kill you. He's the evilest guy in the world. I was getting it every single time. So now you would add another one that now says Zeldin now hates Muslims.
Does seem like a real problem for there not to have been any kind of counter messaging and to squarely fight this battle on crime. But I do want to also ask you, Zohran, I have heard, I think I was listening to an interview AOC gave to Ryan Grimm at The Intercept, where she was also pointing the finger at I think she described it as anemic, the infrastructure of the state party that has basically become anemic as a consequence of having Democratic control for such a long time.
Yep.
And that it just simply doesn't have the wherewithal. It is not used to basically having to defend this kind of ground. I mean, how much do you attribute to those kind of structures?
Okay, that part is true, right? The Democratic Party in New York State and the Republican Party in New York State, they're both jokes. Why would I say that? Republicans statewide never win. So why bother, right? So they give up. Democrats statewide always win. So why bother, right? None of them are prepared to fight anymore. So they kind of just decide who gets what, and they just kind of lay there unless someone gets up and does something. That's actually accurate. That's true.
Problems. And in the wake of this electoral outcome, is there any energy to address being put toward addressing it?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to attribute. A lot of these failures that have occurred in the most recent election should be chalked up to the absolute absence of a state party apparatus, right? We have a state party who is far more interested in defeating the left than in combating the extreme right. And
now that part they're correct on, right? I got to be clear. Obviously, I'm not happy with the left. Not happy with the right either. Not happy with the left for sure. But he's correct. The Democratic Party in New York State is just trying to maintain status quo. By the way, so is the Republican Party. If you're a conservative in New York State, your party doesn't exist. Republicans want to keep status quo. Not like Zeldin is a conservative, right? That the last people they ran were conservative. None of them were Pataki wasn't a conservative. None of them are conservatives. They don't run conservatives. They run status quo. Democrats too. Democrats don't run actual leftist or progressive. They run the status quo people. So both parties are completely in status quo mode. He's right here. There's just no need for them to do any of these things. So they fight each other. They're not prepared to fight the good battles. This, by the way, is one of the reasons why in New York City and New York State, the DSA is doing so well. The Democratic Socialists of America are doing very well in this state. Why? Because they actually organize. They are actually building an infrastructure. That's why this guy is my assemblyman, because of the DSA. That's why he is.
We've seen that explicitly in their financial disclosures, right? The chair of the New York State Democratic Party is a man named Jay Jacobs, who has personally maxed out financial contributions to candidates who are running against socialists in Democratic.
So I want to be clear. I know a lot of people were mad at Republicans for throwing me off the ballot, and you should be, and the Conservative Party, and you should be. This is just evidence that Democrats are just as bad. They throw their people off the ballot. They fight each other all the time. They're all concerned about them keeping status quo power. They do not care at all about this one single bit. So,
party primaries. But when it comes to extremely consequential ballot referendums like the one that took place last November, which would have helped to put in place a congressional map that would have been far more favorable to Democrats, Jay Jacobs' Democratic Party did not spend a single dollar. And I think
that's the redistricting. He won't even, that's the reason. Yes, that's the reason why you did everything. Exactly right. Yes. Tom says the Muslim message is 100% correct, and it's a tough role with the Jewish community versus the Muslim community, probably because he wants to run again at some point. Maybe. Look, Zeldin is Jewish, and he was able to make good inroads in the Jewish community. So maybe he is anti-Muslim. I don't know that. I have no idea. I don't want to say he is or isn't. But if that gets him to win, I get it completely. But I don't know if that's true. So, all righty. Paula says Zeldin would fight any phobia by hiring more cops. That's true. Yes. John says, I constantly tell my friends in Buffalo who argue for Hochul because of Bill Stadium. Oh, yeah. Okay. It's the worst stadium deal by government in history of the U.S. Her husband, who is high up in Delaware North Company that handles concessions, maintenance, and cleaning controls, makes it a conflict of interest for her. 100%. Yes, absolutely. 100%. Yes. All right. See if I can get through here. That good. All right. Let's see here. Paul says, I listened to Rudy Giuliani's show last night, and he said that a good mayor is a servant. I think that's true. You get potholes fixed. Yes. I thought of you, Larry. You wanted to get the potholes fixed across New York, so to speak. That's true. Absolutely. And look, here's what I'll give Giuliani. He's kind of gone off the rails recently. But when Giuliani was mayor, he did a weekly show. This is where I get my idea from. And I always give Giuliani credit for this one. Giuliani used to do a weekly show on WOR radio. I think it was 710, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was every Thursday at 10 a.m., if I remember the time frame right, where he was like literally be with a host and take phone calls. And that kind of stuff would happen. Someone would be like, I'm in Brooklyn on 4th Avenue and the stop sign on 3rd Street is down or something. And he'd be like, all right. He calls people up and they go, put the stop sign back up. That literally was happening in New York City every week. So I love that idea. So I want to go down that road. I want to follow that same idea. So thank you for that, Paul. I appreciate that. Let me keep going on this road if I could.
That just showcases, one, how unserious this man is about running this party. And two, it calls into question a number of people within our party who do not have a view of power as a means to actually do something with it, but rather simply a thing to hold and a thing to simply be in proximity to. But for so many of us, and this spans across an ideological divide, we have a clear belief that if you are in positions of power, then you must use that power to actually achieve the vision that you were supposedly elected or appointed to do so.
Yeah, I mean, in that interview, AOC alluded to...
yes, but most of them don't do that, right? That's the problem, right? I agree, right? Yeah, but people aren't doing that. So, I don't know. It's nice talk.
Walton's race, the lack of support that she got running for mayor of Buffalo, winning and still being defeated by a right-wing, right-wing, LOL, sort of, a write-in campaign by the incumbent. Ross, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say both are true.
Yeah.
And some of you might not know this. The Working Families Party in New York State is such a parasite party that it, in theory, runs its own candidates, but it doesn't. It says it's going to run a candidate, then just backs the Democrat. So the Working Families Party backed the Democrat in the primary in Buffalo. And the primary, the furthest left people voted. And this woman, her name is India Walton. She won the primary. So she beat the incumbent in a primary. So she's like, great, I'm going to win. The Republicans in Buffalo said, we're not going to run a candidate. Why bother? We can't win. This is like Astoria, Queens. We can't win. So the Republicans literally backed the incumbent Democrat. Did a write-in vote, and they beat India Walton. So now India Walton, who says, I don't care about Democrats or whatever, I'm Working Families, ran as a Democrat. Then the Democrats' establishment ran against her with Republican support. This happened last year. I'm not making this up. This literally happened last year, talking about it. They ran, the Democratic establishment and Republican establishment got together, ran against her, got rid of her, and put the Republicans put the Democrat incumbent back in to make sure that they'd rather have the establishment Democrat in than to have what people actually wanted, the actual voters actually wanted. That's New York State. That literally happened. And what does India Walton do? I'm a Democrat. Right back to supporting Biden, right back to supporting Hochul. And her logic was, you can't let Hochul win. That's all that mattered. You just can't let Hochul win. I'm sorry, you can't let Zeldin win.
Gone. but his entire infrastructure, much of his infrastructure and much of the political machinery that he put in place is still there. And this is a machinery that is disorganized. It is sycophantic. It relies on lobbyists and big money, and it really undercuts the ability for there to be a farming, grassroots, and state level organizing across the state. And so when that...
She's not wrong, right? She's saying that the Cuomo machine is still there, and it's a terrible machine. AOC's not wrong here.
That languishes, and there's very little organizing happening. Yeah, I mean, basically you're leaving a void for Republicans to walk into. And so I actually think a lot of these Republican gains aren't necessarily like as strong as they may seem. I think it's really from an absence.
Well, I think that is accurate, right? I think what AOC is saying here, again, in this case, she's correct. So very often I'll say this, Democrats are actually very good at diagnosing problems. The problem is their solutions are terrible. Republicans are too apt to go, there's no problem. Republicans are too fast to go, there's no problem. Don't worry about it. Bootstraps. And Democrats are going to go, let me explain the problem. And they're very often correct on the problem. My issue is with their solution. Their solution's always worse than the problem. I'd rather have the problem than have their solution. But and so her discussion of the problem is accurate. I want to make sure I was clear on that. It's absolutely accurate. There is a system that's in place back from Cuomo that is sycophantic, that is based upon one leader, that is broken in many ways, based upon money. Absolutely. But the one good thing for Hochul is Hochul understands the money game. I would even argue better than Cuomo does. She really understands the money game, and she uses it. Hochul's savvy in most ways. Hochul's not savvy in most ways, but she's savvy in the most important way, which is how to hand out favors. Cuomo was much more about my people, only mine, us versus them. So the second there was a chance for Cuomo to go down, everyone put the knife in his back because that's the kind of world he lived in. Hochul is much more of a kumbaya, everybody gets money, everybody wins, everybody gets jobs. So she's very good handing out our money. If you ever want your money to be just stolen from you and handed out in a way that will help one individual, she's the person you should go to. She would do that for you very well. So yes. All right. Let me see if I can keep going down here if I can. All right. Dave says, actual quote, and this year is particularly crucial because the balance of power in the United States House of Representatives can be won if Republicans win just 5 seats. That and donation. Yes, that's true. Good. All right. Let's see here. Fishman's okay. Crazy question. I know ballot harvesting is legal, but is there a penalty if you don't turn in the vote? One would assume. I actually don't know, right? But you'd be breaking a contract. So there should be a penalty. I don't know what that penalty is, but one would assume you're breaking contract. And in theory, if you are getting it via the mail, it could be a mail fraud charge on top of it. Or wire fraud, not mail fraud, wire fraud. If you used, could be that too. So I think yes. I assume yes. I guess that's what I would assume. So anyway, all right. Tom says at some point though, the hand out money, if they don't like you, they will get you from the next person that seeks power. The issue is, Tom, the issue here is if I know, Tom, if you're in charge and I may not like you or I may like you, I don't know, but every single year you're handing them jobs out to me and my cronies, I feel comfortable and good. Maybe I got some dirt on you. You got some dirt on me. Maybe we're okay. And all of a sudden, Shelly wants to run and she might be the boss. And I'm like, I don't know, Shelly. Shelly seems a little bit too clean to me. I like you, Tom. You're nice and crooked. Shelly seems kind of clean. She might not hand those jobs out. She might, but she might not. I'm not going to gamble on Shelly. I know you're dirty and you know I'm dirty. So we're good. So I'd rather us keep going than me gamble on Shelly, who might be kind of clean. So, I see your point, right? Particularly if I'm, to your point, powerful, then I may not care. I may go, you know what? Look, I control Tom, I'll control Shirley, I'll control them all. I might think that. People thought that about Cuomo, and they were wrong. So I don't know. I see your point. I do see your point, right? I'm just saying most people want to go with safety. Not all, but most. So if I know you, I kind of want to come back to stay with you. Tom goes on to say it comes back to term limits. You're correct. I agree. I like term limits. I'm a fan. I agree. But yeah, I think most people will keep it, as safe as they can. I think most people will. So I hope that part was clear. Let me go down a little bit more to go a little further down here, just a little bit more here.
That Maloney had, or that he sought out, was going to be very competitive. From what I've seen, Maloney himself, while he spent a lot of money and siphoned a lot of resources off to.
Now, this is the next piece that people about districting. There were 2 or 3 or 4 senior New York congressmen who lost their seat. Now, why would 3 or 4 senior New York congressmen lose their seat? Doesn't make any sense. Why would they? Because they got redistricted into where they had to fight each other. And people don't know that. Yeah. Carolyn Maloney, who's been in Congress, I don't know, I think since Lincoln, she got elected with Lincoln. So she was there in Congress, and that Jerry Nadeau guy, that guy who's been in Congress since, I don't know, George Washington, whatever, they were both in Congress forever, and they were both 2 powerful people. They got redistricted where they had to fight each other. So no matter what, one powerful Democrat was going to lose. Happened also with Mondaire Jones, is that right? And Maloney. Those 2, powerful, smart, had to fight together. One had to go. That's why the Democrats lost seats. That's the reason why. The heavy hitters who could raise the money had to fight themselves in the primary.
For his race, for his reelection, he also was out of the country for parts of the race, was fundraising overseas, which is amazing.
Where was he?
He went on a junket, I saw, to Europe to try to raise money for the DCCC, and I guess for himself.
I don't know.
And Sean Patrick Maloney is kind of the platonic ideal of the left's idea of a terrible moderate. He's someone.
So to be clear, this guy, Sean Patrick Maloney, his job was to make sure that Democrats in Congress got elected. That was his job. He was the chair of that committee. He was supposed to make sure that happened. So that his goal would have been to make sure the Democrats keep the House. That was his goal. So what did he do? He literally threw another guy out because it's redistricting, because the Democrats sat back and watched themselves get redistricted out of 4 seats. To be clear, if the Democrats had those 4 seats, they probably would not have lost the House. If you're a Republican, think about that. Think about that. This midterm election was so bad that if the Democrats didn't shoot themselves in the foot in New York, they wouldn't have lost
much of his career, yelling at the left, trying to kneecap the left. I still think of him as the guy who ran a fake campaign for Attorney General 4 years ago at the behest of Andrew Cuomo to stop Zephyr Teachout from becoming AG of New York.
I remember that.
So in a way, this is the...
And then Zephyr Teachout ran a little bit as Working Families and then walked away and supports Democrats again. So why do we even have a multi-party system? You Working Families people here in New York State, you're the same as the Conservative Party here in New York State. The Democratic Party treats you like garbage and you keep running back anyway. If you're a Conservative Party in this state, the Republican Party treats you like garbage and you keep running back anyway. And you wonder why nothing gets done, why no one's excited to run, why you don't have good candidates. Why would you? Why would you?
Divine justice that Sean Patrick Maloney gets. But, more importantly, I think something Zohran said is true, is that a lot of these people, whether it's Jay Jacobs or Sean Patrick Maloney, they don't take organizing seriously, and they don't really have an idea of what they want to do with power. I think Lee Zeldin, the right-wing Republican, has an idea of what he wants to do with power. And to an extent, the Republicans in the past few years have taken organizing more seriously in New York City and in communities of color, which is the type of thing that no Democrat would ever want to.
Well, look. All right. What Republicans did well this time, and I will give the Republican establishment kudos for this. What they did well in New York this time is they took the crime issue and brought that in to the cities where the crime was, and brought that into minority communities that weren't Black. And that may sound racist. I don't care. It's just true. If you are Republican, you know what I'm talking about. Black women particularly vote Democratic almost no matter what. There are some exceptions, of course, but it's like 98%, some crazy number like that. Black men have been moving towards the Republican Party. That's true. Black women have not been. Black women have been hardcore Democrats. Again, it's by percentage, right? You can always, of course, find some Black women who vote Republican. But the vast majority, like over 95%, vote Democratic. The men have been moving, though, shifting. But that shift is still small. So now it's like 85% or something versus 90%. So it's still a massive chunk of Black America votes Democratic. So Republicans said, crime's an issue. Don't go to Black communities because they don't vote for us. Let's go to Asian communities, Hasidic Jewish communities. Let's go to Indian American communities. Let's do that. And it works. Indian Americans are moving towards the Republican Party. Jewish communities are moving towards the Republican Party. That's actually happening, right? Hispanics are, absolutely. So yes, Muslims not so much. The Muslim community is not as much, but they are a little bit, but it's not as much. So yes, this part is accurate.
Say or defend in any way, or or to endorse, but you look at the outreach in the Asian community, especially in the Latino community.
Yep.
I mean, Zeldin was campaigning there for a long time. Republicans don't have much of an organizing infrastructure statewide, but Democrats don't either. And
that's the point. Thank you for saying that. You keep beating up Democrats. Republicans don't have anything either. What Zeldin had more than anything else, is money. I'll be forward with you guys. When I ran in 2018, not 2022, in 2018, I probably had more of an infrastructure than Republicans had. Because I had people who actually cared about the campaign and went out there and got stuff done. We had, we were able to get things done. This time, obviously, I couldn't get the ballot, a whole different issue. The Republicans had anything. If you give me $12 million, or 15, whatever he raised, I'll have infrastructure too. That's not impressive for $15 million. I could easily build out a great infrastructure for $15 million, easily.
It's something you mentioned the AOC interview where she said that Democrats have grown soft maybe because New York is a Democratic state, but it goes beyond that. I mean, this lack of a Democratic Party organization is a decades-long issue. It was an issue for the entirety of Cuomo's tenure. It was an issue before then.
No need.
It was an issue when Republicans controlled the state Senate, which they did until 2019.
Yep. But that it's been a blue state for a long time. Pataki was not a hardcore Republican. In fact, neither was Giuliani. Giuliani was not a hardcore Republican. He was a Republican, but he was much more, compared to other Republicans. He was much more left compared to other Republicans, and so was Pataki. Absolutely. In fact, for those of you who don't know this, Bloomberg was New York City's Republican mayor. I'm not joking. Some of your heads might have exploded. That's an absolute fact. Bloomberg, yes, that Bloomberg was New York City's Republican mayor. That's how red New York City is. Bloomberg was our Republican mayor. Yes. Kevin asks, who was the last GOP governor? It was Pataki in 2002. No. In 1998, I think is when he won last. I think he won 2002. No, he won in 2002. I think he did. I think he won in 2002. He did. So yeah, that's the last time a statewide election was 2002, 20 years ago. Yep, that's when it was. He was much more, compared to other Republicans, he was more left-leaning, is what I would say. He was still a Republican, but he was more left-leaning relative to others. So Dave asked, Larry, what happened to the Liberal Party of New York? They went away years ago. I know they have a website, but they're not a party. They don't have enough space and time. The closest thing to the Liberal Party now is the Working Families Party. That's the closest thing you have. Isn't the same, but it's close. So yes. Joseph says the redistricting screwed a lot of things up. We have a lifelong state senator in my area where they did the redistricting and they put him into an unfavorable district. Yes. and he owned property in a more favorable Republican district. So what he did was he abandoned his district and ran in that district, challenging another senator to a primary, leaving a Democrat alone in the original district. That's what happened, Joseph. Thank you. So you felt it. That was all over the state. That was all over the state. That's why that happened. The redistricting debacle is what screwed everything up. Fishmail says both sides want to expand government power and enrich themselves. Yes, that is correct. Fishmail also says, I feel bad for older Black women afraid to leave their house. They get everything done before 11 a.m. when the madness starts. You know, there is something to that. You do find people who are afraid. And that's where the crime issue comes in. And what Republicans have done decently here is they've jumped in to try to say, aren't you afraid, Mr. Asian? Aren't you afraid, Ms. Hispanic? Aren't you afraid, Mr. Hindu? Right? They've been doing a lot of that here in New York City. And it has been working. I mean, it has been working. If that's true, it is. So Grace says, I know several Black women who say they prefer the politics of GOP, but they feel the party's racist. Yes, I say this all the time, guys. I know some of you don't get it. Like, why do Black people keep voting Democrat? I don't understand. Don't they see this? Don't they see that? Black people have been told for decades that Republicans are racist. That's a fact. What you just said, Grace. They've been told for decades that Republicans are racist. So, as I said, I have family. They are absolutely conservative. They have conservative beliefs. They are churchgoers. They own firearms, and they vote Democratic. You're right, Grace. That is going to take lots of time, and people who work to change that are, I hope I'm able to help. Also, people like Maj Touré in Philly trying to change that mindset, right? People, they're trying to change that mindset. A lot of people I know don't like Kim Klacik out of Baltimore very much, but I do like her, not because of her politics. I wish she wasn't so Republican. I wish she's too hardcore Republican for me. However, I respect her because what she does is the same thing Maj does. They go into the neighborhoods. Kim goes into the neighborhoods. She's not like, I'm going to stay over here and pretend like I'm Black and never, ever go into a neighborhood. No, she's in there. She goes there. You will see her there. She loves her Baltimore. I give her credit for that. She absolutely does. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of Democrats do it too. So just most Republicans don't. That's why I say that, right? Kim Klacik does that. I do think she's too Republican for me. However, I got to give credit where credit is due. Absolutely, she does that, right? And as I said before, AOC used to. No more. She doesn't anymore. You don't see AOC around here anymore, but she used to do it. But some of the other ones like Tiffany Caban, she's in the neighborhood. So yeah, even this guy, he's in Mamdani, Mamdani. He's in the neighborhood too. So I'll give them that. They do come to the neighborhood. So I appreciate that. Yes. Let's see here. Paula says, I know a lot of Republicans in the city who love Bloomberg. They were supporting him again. Yes, that's a New York City Republican, right? In New York City, they ask you a question. They say, are you a communist? And you go, yes, I am. And they go, okay, you're a Democrat. If you go, no, I'm just a socialist. Okay, Republican. That's how New York City politics works. Our Democrats are open socialists, open communists. Our Republicans, just socialists. That's all. That's how we work. So yes. All right. That's very good. Let me grab a couple more if I could. A couple more seconds of this, just so you see what I'm talking about. And then I'll wrap it up. I just wanted you guys to see how this works and how no one's listening to me.
Other states have party organizations that do basic stuff. You go to New Hampshire, you go to Nevada, you go to Michigan, you can go to a lot of states. Kansas, I'm sure, just reelected a Democratic governor. They have parties that call voters, organize volunteers, pay for smart mail and digital campaigns, have clubs or local county level organizations who they.
And this is why the DSA in New York City is doing so well, because the DSA checks every one of those boxes. Now, to be clear, I am not a socialist. I'm not happy with the DSA. However, I will always, I just gave Kim Klacik credit where credit is due. She's Republican. I'll give the DSA credit where credit is due. They organize. And that's why this gentleman right here, Mamdani, is my assemblyman, because he is a member of the DSA. They organized for him. They went out of their way and did the right thing. So, you know what? If you organize, you tend to win. If you go into the neighborhoods, you tend to win. So yes, on this one, he's right.
With the parties can recruit candidates, they can help fund candidates. They're all imperfect in their own ways, but they're all doing things that just are not done in New York at all.
Yeah.
If you want to run for office in New York, you're on your own, even if you're someone who's, quote, institutionally aligned.
So, and again, they don't support parties. So yes. John says, Larry, thanks for statements on Mark Victor. Your opinion and views are right on. I hope this never happens again. For those who don't know what happened with Mark Victor was a libertarian running in Arizona. Think of this, John. And he ran as a libertarian. And then about 3 weeks out, give or take, whatever the time period was out, he dropped out and then endorsed the Republican publicly on like a Zoom call or something. And people like, well, Larry, he can do what he wants. And I was like, he can, but he's wrong. Why is he wrong? People go, well, Larry, can't you support a Republican? You can if you want to. I'm not against someone deciding to support a Republican or a Democrat. If you think that's the right person for you, go ahead. People do it all the time. The specific problem is you run for office as a libertarian when you know you like the Republican better already. If you like the Republican better already, why the hell are you running? Just don't run. That's option one. Option two, you're running. And then you realize after you're running, wow, the Republican is better or the Democrat's better. If you live in Colorado, Paul's pretty good, right? Whatever. So the other person's better or has a better chance to make a move. Then just drop out. That's it. You don't have to do the endorsement piece. What a lot of difference does it make? Once he did that, he hurt every single other libertarian candidate running. Prior to endorsing someone else, what he's done is doesn't hurt. There's no harm on anyone else. He's not hurting me or anybody else running. He's just deciding I can't run and I'm going to stop running. He may be hurting his donors if he feels that. That's up to him. That's between him and his donors. But he's not hurting any other candidate. He's just going, I can't run anymore, or I feel like it's not going to make any sense, or whatever, he drops out. I get that. I don't like it, but I get it. There's no victim, if that makes any sense. But when he says, I'm dropping out, and the real guy to do is to vote for this guy. Now, every single other person running now gets that pressure. I got it daily. People going, Larry, if you cared about New York State, you would drop out and back Lee Zeldin. And all that does is slow things down and makes things bad. First off, it's wrong. How do we know this? Because to John's point, Mark Victor dropped out and still got 2% of the vote. He dropped out, publicly endorsed the Republican, still got 2% of the vote. I keep telling people, when you're voting for a third party, particularly a libertarian, you guys aren't going to listen to me if I order you to do something. I order you, John, to vote for so-and-so. You're going to say, Larry, shut up. I'm not doing what you say because you order me. You might do what I say because I provide an appropriate argument and you believe the argument. You might do it then. That makes sense, Larry. I'm going to go do that. Then you might. That's what libertarianism is about, volunteerism. You think what I'm saying makes sense. You like it, so you go do it. You chose to because you believed what I said. But if I order you, you're not doing it. You were, what? Nope. So they voted for him anyway, which is what I said will happen no matter what. So not only is it not true, not only does it not work, but on top of it, it hurts everyone else who now has to deal with that issue. It delegitimizes every other libertarian who's running. It makes our social media worse. It makes raising money worse. It makes people not believe in us more. You should not do that. And I would say if you're a libertarian, you can't do that. If you care about the party, you can't do that. Or you don't care about the party. And here's the best part. Mark Victor dropped out of the race. And the other guy still lost. Masters still lost. Now, I don't know Masters. I don't know if he's a good libertarian. I have no idea. So maybe he's a good guy. Maybe he's a jerk. I don't know. Whatever. Whoever. He lost anyway. Whatever it is, he lost anyway. So what did Mark Victor get? Nothing. Nothing. Bent down. Took it. And got nothing. Now libertarians hate him. And you think Republicans don't like him now? No. Republicans are going to be like, oh, Mark Victor, you hooked us up. Now we love you. Here's stuff. No. I bet he got nothing. I bet he got absolutely nothing for it. So, John, thank you for bringing it up. If you care about the Libertarian Party, and maybe you do listening or watching, maybe you don't. But if you do, and you think the Democrat or Republican is better than you are, please don't run. just support that Republican or that Democrat if you think that's the right answer for you. I hope not. I hope you believe that the Republican's better, but maybe he isn't. I mean, I'm sorry, the Libertarian's better, but maybe he isn't. I hope you believe that. And I hope you give him the benefit of the doubt. If you're not unsure, I hope you do that, but not required. But please don't run and then quit and then endorse somebody else. It's not going to help. You're not going to get anything. You've just made it harder for everyone else to run and virtually impossible now wherever you are. The next Arizona person running, they'll be thinking, why don't you drop out like Mark Fichte did? That's what he's going to hear all day long. How are you going to raise money now? No one's going to believe you. No one's going to believe you. So, yes, it's a terrible thing. We should never do it. So, yes. All righty, see if I can go here. Let's see here. Dave says, Larry, did Victor get paid? By the way, I don't think he did. I think he just got bent over. That's what I think, right? I think he's got bent over. Tom says, we need more local and county libertarians to run. So I agree completely. This is why I want to get ballot access, Tom, so that we can do that. Ballot access gets people on the ballot. That's the issue. Ballot access gets people on the ballot so we can do this. And that's what I wanted to bring up again if I could. If I had gotten what I wanted, I would have been able to make real impact in the state. I would have been able to get an independent party on the ballot, grow grassroots, and move forward. The Republicans didn't want that, and Democrats didn't care. That's my state right now. Sadly, that's going to be your state soon if it isn't, because that's going to every state. People just aren't caring. The elites keep staying in charge, and that's what keeps happening. It's not good. We've got to fight for a real third party, a real independent party, and I hope you will help me. You can in a couple ways. You can like it, you can comment, you can share, as I always keep saying. You can support the show. Patreon.com/Sharpway. $10 a month keeps this show going. Or just support my sponsors. World's Smallest Political Quiz. Take that quiz, share it. Do that, and now you're supporting the show. That's a big deal if you can do that, right? I think it is important that we actually make that happen. Let me see if I can go a little bit further on this one here, and we'll wrap this up with a little bit more if I could. Should be only a little bit more left I want to talk about.
Where the candidate is there and they're just meeting everyone and sitting around the table and hearing the issues. And as much as we can joke about, how repetitive so many of those events are, they are at their essence a chance for people to be heard, a chance for people to be seen. And
Yes.
There was somebody who stated in an article recently that if you were going by WeChat, you wouldn't even know that Governor Hochul was running for re-election. And I think
Now, this part is true. He's talking about how he's gone around with a positive message. I'll say again, though, this guy's never run against a Republican. So I don't know what he's talking about. But he means that there's a value to, shaking hands and pressing the flesh. And that's true. And we should do more of that. And I hope we can do more of that. But to wrap this whole thing up, at no point was that the reason why Republicans did well in New York State. And for those of you, again, I'll give Zeldin credit too. He is grifting this thing like there's no tomorrow. He ran a crappy campaign. And repeat that. He ran a crappy campaign that was just cops are cops and cops love cops. That was his entire campaign. Not one answer. The reason why there wasn't a massive red wave overall the entire country, the reason why is there was no positive solving message. Look at the last two big breakouts. Obama for the Democrats, Trump for the Republicans. Obama had hope and change. Trump had make America great again. Those positive messages moved people into we can do something. Now all our politics is other guy bad. Other guy bad ensures we retain the status quo. I don't want any more of the status quo. It's terrible. It's what we keep doing. Guys, I want to thank you so much for today. I appreciate you giving me a little bit of your evening. My daughter is home from college. I'll be spending time with my family this weekend. I'll be back in action, though, again on Monday. 2 shows on Monday, a Libertarian Drinking Coffee Live, and then another Sharpway show in the evening. So 2 shows on Monday, and I think 2 shows on Tuesday also, because I have a free solution, and then another Sharpway show, and maybe 2 shows on Wednesday, because Thursday and Friday, I'll be off for Thanksgiving. So I'm going to try to give you guys a bunch of shows if I can next week. I will see you all